Hello, fishes, and welcome back to another Smash Bros. Mural update. We are here this week with Jigglypuff, who it's an ongoing thing with is well known amongst my friends and family that I hate Jigglypuff more than any adult should hate a video game character. Um, and it's honestly for the most ridiculous reason, but it's a matter of principle at this point in my life. Um, but I hate Jigglypuff because as a kid I borrowed the original Smash Bros. Game from a friend of mine for the N64, and as a kid I could not. I didn't have a save card for my N64. So every time I would turn off the game, I would lose all progress. And so I was never able to fully unlock the other four fighters in Smash Bros. Um, and the only one it's also, I didn't know how to unlock the other three, so it's not exclusively the save card's fault. But it would have been mildly inconvenient to have to unlock all four of them every time I wanted to play. So it had that going for it. But the only fighter I was ever able to figure out how to unlock as a kid was Jigglypuff. Um, because I didn't realize that you would have to do other things to get the other three. And they weren't even that hard doing it. It was just I couldn't figure it out. I was a stupid kid. I was probably like 8-ish, something to that effect. But yeah, so every time I would boot up the game, I would just mess around with the solo player mode because, my family didn't really play it with me growing up. And I would just passively, so I wouldn't do it with the intent of unlocking Jigglypuff. It was just every time I would play the solo campaign and I would finish it, I would unlock Jigglypuff, and it just made me irrationally mad because I couldn't get Captain Falcon, Ness, or Luigi, and I really wanted them. But I would finish the solo campaign and it would be like, you unlocked Jigglypuff, and I just would get mad every time. So that is ultimately what it boils down to. Like, I hate Jigglypuff for that reason. And there is not a single thing in the world that will ever make me like Jigglypuff. It's one of those just passive aggressive hatreds that there's not a single thing that could happen that will make me like Jigglypuff. And now my family torments me about it because in Smash Bros. Ultimate, there is the Smashdown game mode where you pick a fighter, and then at the end of that battle, that fighter is no longer available, and you slowly dwindle down the fighters until you either win or you run out of fighters, right? So what we do is we play with that mode. We always add a computer that's on random fighter, and it's done in such a way that my family prays that none of the computers take Jigglypuff, because one of the rules we have is the final battle of the game, we all have to pick random, and we just have to deal with whatever random fighter is left on the roster. And it's typically all the ones that we don't really use because no one mains Jigglypuff in my family. So that one, as long as the random computer doesn't take it at any point in time, there's a good chance I will be forced to play as Jigglypuff. And it's happened more times than it should. Like, the odds of it happening once when you have 3 players and a random and you have 8 total fighters left over or whatever, and the odds of me getting Jigglypuff every time, like, not every time, it's happened I think 3 times now, and so it's just happened way more than it should. And my wife Rose and my younger brother just get so much enjoyment in watching me suffer by forcing me to play Jigglypuff because of it's the rules of the game. And so But yeah, so if you ever hear me mention why Jigglypuff and how much I hate Jigglypuff, now you know. It is a grudge from a 10-year-old who could not unlock any other characters in a fighting game on a console that is older than most people, most of my viewers, I'm sure. um, but now that that's out of the way, I guess I will talk about Jigglypuff for a little bit because I have some time to kill here. It's a Gen 1 Pokemon. Obviously, it's been around since forever. And it has its evolution, which is Wigglytuff, which I actually don't hate Wigglytuff because it's grown out of its Jigglypuff phase. So, I mean, it's a better Pokemon as it is. And then there's Igglybuff, which I also don't like because it still has the potential of being a Jigglypuff. So, very mixed messages here. Back in Gen 1, they didn't have fairy types, so it was just a normal type Pokemon. And then when they added fairy types, which I believe they added in X and Y? Question mark? Something like that. Yeah, because I think that's when we got Sylveon, too. It wasn't X and Y. But yeah, so when they added fairy type Pokemon, Jigglypuff was changed to fairy type. There isn't many fairy type Pokemons that I like, just because I'm not really into the pink aesthetic. Sylveon's my favorite Eevee because out of necessity, because I didn't really like any other fairy type. It just kind of became like, if I needed a fairy type Pokemon, I would just pick Sylveon because I do like Sylveon's design. But that has changed now with the inclusion of Fido and Darkspun in Scarlet and Violet. Fido and Darkspun are my forever favorite fairy type Pokemon. I really, like, honestly, I would put Fido and Darkspun as top tier, like S tier Pokemon of all time. I will always say my favorite starter is Oshawott, but Fido and Darkspun are, I think, my new favorite Pokemon of all time. Such a good design, such good naming abilities, all of that. It's just, honestly, they did so good with Fido and Darkspun. But this isn't about them. This is about Jigglypuff and how much I hate it. In Scarlet and Violet, they also added the Paradox Pokemon, where they talked about, or they added Screamtail, I believe is what its name. It's like this, like, caveman Jigglypuff with wild hair. And I don't hate that one. Like, it's got a good design, and it's not a Jigglypuff by definition. So, it's got that going for it. But yeah, as far as, like, the Jigglypuff go, it's, well, I guess for me as a kid, because I never really played Pokemon growing up, so the extent of my Pokemon knowledge as a kid was through, because Smash Bros. And a couple episodes of the anime cartoon. Because I know, like, Coffin, I always thought his name was Coffee, because that's just how it was said. So, like, growing up me, I always like, oh, his name is Coffee, not realizing what his name was. But I didn't like Jigglypuff in the Smash Bros. 64 because to me it was just Diet Kirby, like pink puffball that could semi-fly, could also put you to sleep, with its music and whatnot. But it just kind of was, I didn't understand what it was supposed to be because we already had a pink puffball. Why did we need another one? But that's, neither here nor there. That was just me not understanding the concept of the Pokemon. As Jigglypuff stands, like, it's not the worst Pokemon, but I hate when people say that Gen 1 was, like, the best generation for Pokemon, because ultimately, I feel like the people who say that are the ones who are, like, blinded by nostalgia, because some of the Gen 1 Pokemon are kind of boring. Not bad. Like, their designs, they're just not, because they didn't know what they were doing yet. They didn't know, they didn't have they were playing it safe because they didn't know if this whole thing would be popular or not. And that's not to say that Gen 1 Pokemon are bad. Like, there are a lot of good Gen 1 Pokemon, But I feel like, and in recent times, people are, turning on it because Pokemon is like, oh, Charizard's the best Pokemon because, people back then would always say that Charizard is the best Pokemon, but now people are getting tired of Charizard being a part of everything. And same with like Pikachu. Pikachu was the face of Pokemon for the longest time because of the anime and stuff, and now people are just kind of like, yeah, Pikachu's nice. Like, nothing wrong with Pikachu. And I feel like that's how all of Gen 1 Pokemon are. Like, not to say that later generations didn't have their terrible designed Pokemon. I feel like I would say every generation has bad Pokemon, including Gen 1. Like, there's just so many. But anyway, that's my rant about Pokemon. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys!